It's the Alison Arngrim Show. Yes, I'm Alison Arngrim. Now, some of you may remember me as evil Nellie Olson from Little House on the Prairie. But tonight, I'm Alison Arngrim, and this is the Alison Arngrim Show. And here on the Alison Arngrim Show, we talk about things that make us feel good. The movies and the television shows that made us feel good, and the people who made them, and people who are doing things now to make the world a better and more interesting place. And you know I have some good ones. I have two people tonight. I am so excited. Okay, now first I have a man here who he's been on the show before, and it was very exciting when he was on then. He has an organization called Doors of Change and has been helping homeless youth for 20 years and with actual results, getting kids off the streets, kids who are throwaways and runaways and had to leave home and under all sorts of horrible circumstances, and through art and music and actually listening to them and actually talking to them, getting these kids off the street. The amazing Mr. Jeffrey Sitcov of Doors of Change.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming back. Well, you're back because you've got another new fabulous celebrity person who is helping you do this, but she's particularly interesting. You've had a lot of musicians, a lot of celebrities come forward and help raise awareness about your organization. But tonight, there's no getting around it. She is Hollywood royalty. She is absolutely from a Hollywood royal family. She has starred on Broadway. She has been in movies. She has been in television. Oh, yeah. You know who she is. Yes, it's Lucie Arnez. Welcome to the Alison Arngrim Show.
Thank you, Alison. It's a pleasure. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. This is just what a fabulous combination. I mean, but between both of you, your resumes, it's just like, wow, what I could do one of you at a time is something. This is just great. So, Jeffrey, last time you were on here, we talked about literally the hundreds of thousands of kids who are on the streets. It's just in California, let alone nationwide. And the biggest underserved group, it's late teens and early 20s. And so many services for youth who are in trouble or at risk on the street, they'll stop at 18. It's like the foster kids. It's like, I think you're 18. Sorry. And they wind up homeless. You continue on into early 20s because you know that a lot of them just don't have the tools to get it together.
That's correct. Alison, the transitional age youth between the ages of 17 and 25 is the most underserved of the entire homeless population. You hear about the vets, you hear about the families, you hear about the older people. You never hear about the youth. And so this age group, not only the most underserved, the great part about it is that if you help them and they trust you, they can break the cycle of homelessness more than any other age group because they have been on the streets that long.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. They're young. They have their whole lives ahead of them, and many of them are there due to household abuse, terrible family problems, and lack of education. They're in a position where, okay, well, we might get you a place to live and education. Things can change, literally, as you say, doors of change.
Yeah, it's most people always ask, why are these kids on the street? Do they run away? They just want to run away. They want to be on their own. No, that's not the case. 90% of the kids that I work with for 21 years now are homeless because they come from such dysfunction. Their family is so dysfunctional. Their parents are drug addicts. They're alcoholics. They have mental issues, their parents. But even greater than that now, if they're LGBTQ plus, 40% nationally get kicked down the streets when they tell their parents they're gay.
And it's literally, this is something a friend and I were just talking about. Yeah, the number of trans kids, gay kids, any kid who just is remotely different tells their parents, well, I'm not sure if I fit into the mold that you were planning on for me. And throw them out of the house. Out of the house.
Yep. I'll never forget when I started this 21 years ago, one of my first youth that I worked with, his name was Joseph. And Joseph's father was a Baptist minister in San Diego. And as soon as he came out, within literally 10 minutes, his dad kicked him out of the house. He had no money, no clothes, no nothing. And he had to have survival sex in the first hour to get enough money to get to a shelter. And his dad was okay with that. And I'll never forget that.
Of all people, but that's the thing. Now, I have to, so Lucie, tell me, you guys, how did you two get together? How did you meet? And how did you get involved with Jeffrey and Doors of Change?
We have a mutual friend, Harlan Bowl, who is a publicist, and he's been working with Jeffrey pro bono for quite a while. And Harlan never brings anything to me that isn't classy. And he just texted me or emailed me one day and he said, I'm working with this group and they're really on the level, they get shit done and they really understand the problem and they're solving it. And it's about homeless youth, and they work locally at San Diego area. And we need a voice that, can help us spread the word. Like sometimes Jeffrey wants to get something in the paper and people are interested, but you know how it is. What's the bold name? Like who we're gonna, it's terrible that that's what it is, but that's what it is. And as I said, I've never been led down a crazy path by Harlan. So I said, send me the material. Let me see. And I really liked what I was reading, especially the fact that they approach these kids that are on the street without, forcing them to do anything. They actually started by saying, we have music and art programs we could get you involved in if you're interested. Would you like to come and learn how to play the guitar? Would you like to learn how to draw? And that gives them something to do. And then it gives them a way to actually trust the people that are doing that with them. And the ability to trust is why Jeffrey and his team can then ask more personal questions like, do you have a home? I mean, are you homeless? And start the process of figuring out how to help them. And I just love helping people through music and art, through the arts, as you probably understand why. I just think it's an amazing thing. And especially people who are troubled, it's a great way to express yourself and all of the angst that you're feeling through those mediums. So we still haven't met face to face, Jeffrey, because of COVID and various other things. We've been meeting on Zooms and talking on the phone a lot and doing as many of these as we can to get the word out. But yeah, that's how we met. And I have a personal affinity to the problem because there were times in my kids' life early on, and they're in their 40s now, but when they were in their teens, there was some tough love stuff that had to go on. They both of my sons, Simon and Joe, had bouts where it was like, we didn't do any of the things that you just said. We weren't abusive, alcoholic parents beating our children up, and they weren't gay and we weren't kicking them out, but there was behavior that we were told by family therapists and whatnot that, you got to have a boundary. And you'd say, hey, if you do that, you can't live here. And there was sometimes I'd go, yeah, okay. And it would, but other times, to hell with you. And they're off. Okay. And it's Christmas and it's cold in Westchester County, New York. And had to live through that until one of them was ready to say, okay, I don't want to live like this anymore. And you're right. What do I need to do? And then we got some help for them, and there were programs, and it was okay. And they were fine, and they're great now. But I had to go through that a lot. And even with my other son, when he was a lot older and he wasn't working, and he just chose, screw the man, I'm on the street. I don't care about any of you people. He's a very bright, very talented guy, but he marches to his own drummer. He calls himself a flea on a hot rock, and he is a flea on a hot rock. He kind
this is the thing that when I've done programs with food for the homeless thing, there is such a cross section of people who are on the street, and for so many reasons. You have people there for mental illness.
That's right. That's why you can't just see them and assume all losers. They're not all losers. They all have different problems, maybe some behavioral, mental psychosis type of stuff that put them in that position in the first place, which my kids sort of do in a weird way.
And you have people who said, I don't want to do this. I'm not cut out to do this kind of work. And then they say, well, what if I went like off the grid? And then it's like, oh, wait, that didn't work out. You have that and everything in between. But that's something amazing. Well, first of all, okay, Harlan has brought everybody together. Does everybody know Harlan? We all know Harlan. Like, who does not know Harlan?
I think they do now,
But there's a thing. People would never in a million years say that your family could have someone in your family that wound up on the street.
We're just regular folks. And they throw that in. They used to throw that in our face too. Like, oh, I'm going to be on the street. I'm going to tell everybody that your son is on the street. And I go ahead. That's fine, but you put yourself there. And it wasn't like, I'm kicking you out. There were boundaries and you crossed them. And we don't live like that in this house. And then they came back, and they're great kids. They're wonderful kids. I think that the Christmas letter is highly overrated. You know what I mean? The Christmas letter we all get from our friends.
The newsy letter?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my kids went to college and they did wonderful. And they all have Bachelor of Arts degrees and they're married and they're all very happy. Where's the real Christmas letter? right? About everything that actually happened in the family that year. And all the
Right?
people who aren't talking to one another, and the kids are like, you don't even know where they are, and they're not being people. That's the way families are. And you go in and out and in and out of this stuff. So anyway, the point being, I can see this from all various sides, and I sympathize with the whole problem in general, because I know it from a parent's point of view, and I know it, you know, can't even imagine what it must be like if you are not choosing to be on the street and someone puts you there just because of your, you know, choice of who to love, or oh, I mean, what?
Right.
So they need help, and there's an awful lot of places that don't have a Doors of Change, that don't have a Jeffrey, that don't have that. I don't know what they do. We have a huge homeless population where I live. I live in Palm Springs, California, and it's
Oh,
nice
right.
here. So, you know, people come here because the weather's supposed to be nice, but it's, you know, it's winter now. And even though it's beautiful during the day, it's freezing cold at night. And
It's the
these guys
desert.
are, you know, they're up there like, ooh, like, blah, 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 blah. And I drive by and they're young and they're just the shopping carts, and I don't know, you don't know where to start. So I have always wanted to try to help this problem, but it seems too big. You know, it's like, how do you begin? How do you ever do anything about it? And my folks used to say, you know, think globally, act locally. So if you can find something within your grasp that's not too big, and you can work at it on a level that you can actually accomplish something, if everybody did that, all the pieces would fit together like Hands Across
Mhm.
America. Remember Hands
Yeah,
Across America?
I do.
Like,
And that's
how
the
did they
thing.
do that? You
We
know?
think of that as a modern thing, as such a
Yeah.
modern thing to, yeah,
Yeah.
act locally, think globally. But your own parents are. It's the trust issues when people have that, don't have trust. They don't have that kind of relationship, whichever way, where they've somehow lost trust in other humans. That's where you see this, and that's why his program. We're talking about the music.
Yeah.
You have people on the street where if you came to them and said, "Well, yeah, we can get a place to stay. We got a warm place to stay. We got food." It's dealing with the authorities. It's dealing with people who may be calling the police on them, who may be taking them to an institution, who may be taking them back to a family who
Yeah.
who doesn't love them, and
Exactly.
they can't go there. They cannot go there.
Someone to
So
trust.
Jeffrey's like, "Do you want guitar lessons?" Like, wait, what? And to
Well, it's
establish
like
that
a,
level of
it's like
trust.
a in the meantime. In the meantime, how about you come over here and we'll do some painting and we'll play some music? What young kid wouldn't say yes to that, you know? And it's not like, I thought I might be a little scared of that if I was a young kid. Like, what is that? A come on for like a pimp ring? You know, I mean, it must be hard, Jeffrey. Do some kids like say to
Right?
you,
You
what?
must.
Like, I don't
Who
know.
are you? Who are
You
you,
might have
pal?
to
Yeah.
convince them that you're on the level, and then, no, you really do teach people. But he doesn't just drag them in. He gives them a card or something that says, this is where we are. You know, if you want to come check it out someday, we're down there at the park or whatever. And then they show up or they don't, you know, but it works.
And Jeffrey, that's something I've seen in homeless people of all ages. So much fear. Most people I see who are on the street, they're terrified. They're terrified. They're afraid that something even worse is going to happen. That if they're not there, they're either going to go back to a horrible situation, or they're going to have to deal with the cops or institutions or something. So they'll reject offers, even legit, totally cool offers of help, because of that fear. How are you getting through that fear? Because they would even be afraid of you.
Yeah, well, you both bring up great points, and trust is everything. If they do not trust you, they're not going to ask for help. And so for 18 years, we had an award-winning music and art program, and we've got tremendous results. We saw 8,300 youth. That's a lot of kids through that program. They came in voluntarily. We don't drag them in. However, since COVID, everything has changed.
Yeah.
And so for the last 3 years, we've had to pivot ourselves and do things completely different. We had to close down our award-winning program. But you know something? The last 3 years, we've doubled the amount of kids in housing every year for 3 years. We had to do it differently. But the most important thing is we found out that you have to gain trust, you have to be flexible, and you have to not have any, any preconceived ideas of what these kids are going to do. You accept them for who they are.
Yeah.
And when you accept them for who they are, you don't have expectations of them. And they ask for something. One of our secret sauces, we realize that we get to them very quickly. When a kid calls us, we pick up the phone immediately. We actually have our staff have their phones 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Because 98% of the organizations, at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, you're done. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Well, we
Right.
don't do that. So we catch the kids when they need us the most. And it's like, wow. Or they need something within an hour, we'll deliver it to them. And so when they start getting that, it's like, wow, they're blown away. But from that, let me just share with you, 3 years ago, we had 83 youth we put into housing, which is a lot of kids. Last year, we had 161 kids we put into housing. This year, 313 already. Okay, that's without the music and art program. So that kind of shows us that we can build trust in other ways. The most important thing is building trust. And once they trust you, they want to get help.
Yeah.
But it's just the level of fear. Right now, how then, indeed, during COVID, as we're just talking about before we started, all of us trying to find like lighting in our homes to do this. Everything is Zoom. We have all relationships on Zoom. I work with people, and all the meetings are in Zoom. It's like, do you wear pants? I have no idea.
No, don't own any anymore. Don't need them.
Yeah. I don't wear the shoes. I usually but we're in this whole like Zoom world. How are you are doubling and tripling your numbers, and you're not able to do as much physical in person in the street stuff because COVID. We're all like in this bizarro world. What have you been doing? Because you're doubling and tripling your numbers of people you're helping. How is this what?
What we've done is this, and this is crazy because before COVID, we would be able to see a lot of kids on the streets. We literally see them. You go up to them and talk to them. Now, since COVID, you don't see any kids. They're there, but they're hidden. These kids are so petrified of the virus that they're afraid that if they get the virus, they get COVID, they're going to die. Because
where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? Their folks aren't going to come pick them up and take them to the hospital. They're not going to get Paxlovid and pick it up at the pharmacy. Right? What are they going to do? So it's kind of terrifying.
That's exactly right.
So,
so how are you getting them? How are you reaching them now?
So what we're doing is we're going out 4 days a week on outreach instead of 2. So we double the amount of outreach we're doing, which is significant. And we got 4 outreach workers going out 2 at a time, looking for kids in several different locations. Since we don't see a lot of them, we're putting posters up everywhere. And the posters let them know what we can do for them. Okay. And these kids are calling us by the droves. Okay. And it's amazing because they don't trust people, but they think, well, maybe if I can get a phone, maybe I can get a laptop, maybe I can get, whatever, I'll check it out. So they're calling us. And then our case managers will meet them very quickly afterwards. We have 2 full-time case managers. We hired another full-time case manager, but it's so busy, it's a great problem. And so we literally have them go and meet them. And as long as they want to help themselves, we'll give them a phone. As long as they want to help themselves, if they want to go to community college, we'll give them a laptop. Okay. We'll fix their car. If their car has problems, because if they can't go to their job, they lose their job. They're on the streets again. So we actually will pay for up to $500 in repairs of their car to get it working so they can go to work. Again, we had to be creative because none of us have been through this before.
Right.
But this is brilliant. I mean, the idea in a way, COVID is causing more people to reach out. It's just like, right, because they're so terrified of that. But again, it's the meeting people where they are. And this is something, the money to fix a car. And sometimes it's a tiny repair. This is one problem that has come up a lot, that poor people are nickel and dime to death. Mm-hmm. And that people who are on the edge financially, it's a tiny thing, a tiny car repair that if you've been working longer, you had a little more money, would be like, oh yeah, well, I'll put it on the credit card. I can pay it next month. Oh, $100? Yeah, I got $100, or I can call somebody for. No, suddenly a $70 car repair, $100 repair that's it. You don't have a car. Now you can't go to work. You can't go to school. You can't get to a court appointment. Maybe you have. All of a sudden, then it's an effect. Suddenly all the other bills you now can't pay. So now you're out of a job. Then if you had any kind of legal dealings, you couldn't make the court appointment because you didn't have bus fare and the car broke down. So suddenly $70, $100 alters 17 different things in your life, all negatively. And then it snowballs, and then it's thousands of dollars. And these are things that people who have enough money to make those little teeny tiny repairs and pay those little tiny bills don't even have to deal with. And that's why there's a level of poorness where you get nickel and dime to death and plunged into these situations. And the fact that you're dealing with that is gigantic, because that's one of the biggest obstacles. That's one of the ways people become homeless.
Well, this is why he needs the money. This is why we like to, donate to Doors of Change, because where does that come from? You just don't have millions of dollars to just give it away. So and they never know what the need is really going to be. And I was wondering, Jeffrey, if you could explain to them, like, if somebody, how do you, when you take in the donations, 'cause I haven't actually looked at this myself,
Sure.
like, is it specific? Like, can people say, okay, if I give this much, it does this? Because I always like to envision where my money's going to go. Oh, $100
Target
will
it.
buy a kid a thing for a month, or is it just general? Like, give us the money, and this is the kind of stuff we're going to do with it.
We've done both, and again, that's a great question, Lucy. We've done both. Let's say, $100 will get you dinner for six. We usually see up to like 20 kids. Let's say 30 kids in a class. That would buy at least 2 dinners for 30 kids each class. Okay. If they, a lot of these kids, they need they need sleeping bags, and so because it is getting cold right now, and
Man.
so we buy them sleeping bags. And so let's say if you donate $100, we can buy this, we can buy that, we can buy that. What we're doing recently, especially since COVID, is that we put into the general fund of our program, our advocacy program, we call the outreach advocacy program, because we're advocates for these kids now. They don't have anybody to help them.
Right.
So really are almost like their parents trying to advocate for them what they need.
Yeah.
And so that's why we hired a $50,000 second case manager. That's a lot of money, 50 grand. But we have to do this because we have so many kids to help. And again, if we have to have another one, we'll have another one.
But see, this is another thing, Ella, when you talk about the speed with which you respond. Everyone talks about this, everyone of all ages, in calling your doctor, calling your medical insurance company, calling about your prescriptions, calling about any of your services. It's been 3 days. Have they called back? Have you gotten an email back? Well, I'm working on my insurance, but I don't know if they're paying for this, and no one's called me back. It is trying to get anybody when you go out to access help, when you're sick and you're trying to access any kind of services, public services, get disability, you name it. It's always forever and try to get anybody to call you back. And so people in terrible situations, like kids on the streets, go, well, yeah, I could go ask for help, I could go call, and then wait around to see if these yo-yos ever call me back. And you're saying, you got the phones going 24 hours. You're calling people back. It's a funny story. My husband mentioned that when he worked at a drug crisis hotline in Ohio, there was a suicide hotline in the town that said they were 24 hours, but they actually went home for dinner at like 6 and sent all the phone calls to him. And so people turn off their phone. They're like, bye. Oh, no, we're not really 24 hours. And the fact that they call and somebody's answering and they're not getting a machine, and that they're like, oh, we'll be right over. Were you like Batman? I mean, nobody's doing that.
Nobody's doing that.
To
well, maybe they are, and we don't know about it, which is why it's important to have people like Harlan Bowl and calling me and Jeffrey and I doing your show, because sometimes there's great things being done out there by amazing people who just wanted to help, but people don't know that they're doing them until somebody says something about it. And, not everybody has hundreds of millions of dollars to donate to these things, but a little goes a long, long way if everybody does it. We found that out with voting, right? Every vote counts, and lots of little one votes make millions and millions of votes, and people just got to show up and put their money where they want.
And exactly. And one extra case manager is how many more kids off the streets, how many more phone calls. But the fact that you're responding, that's got to be, they must go into shock. Like, somebody answered the phone, someone showed up.
We have actually 3 staff. Joanne Newgard, who's our program director, Nicole McDonald, who's our chief case manager, and Maya. They have their phones on them 24/7, all 3 of them. Yeah. And so, just to share with you, last year we saw 365 youth, which is quite a bit of youth. This year, 696 youth, almost 700. Again, we've doubled almost again.
It's kind of sad in a way that the problem is not getting smaller but bigger, but it's wonderful that you're able to accommodate that much, those extra people. I also would like you to share with Alice and Jeffrey some of the amazing success stories of the people that you found on the street and what they're doing now, because that blew me away.
Well, that's the other thing. And last time too, you talked about, because it's not like just like, well, we got so-and-so off the streets. It's like so-and-so is now an attorney.
Some of the stuff that can actually happen, because these are, for the most part, all of them, kids with high potential if they're given the right chance.
You see this guy right here, the African-American, and where my finger is?
Yeah.
His name is Matthew. And Matthew, when I met him, he was 16 years old. The reason he was on the streets is because his father used to beat the hell out of him for no reason. And he said to me, if it happened one more time, I was going to kill my father. he really was going to have to kill his father. And he said, I'm not going to do that. I'm running away. So he ran away. I've known the kid for 16 years now. This kid was, again, he just wanted to have a little help. And of all the kids I've worked with in 21 years, he saved more than any other kid I've ever met. He saved $30,000 while he was working, okay, so that he could put himself through school. He put himself through school at the University of Riverside. He got a double degree in computer science and engineering. And this is Matthew now, okay? And Matthew is a father now. Theo is now 6 months old, and he has the double degree. He's making a six-figure income. And he told me, I just got some great news for you. I got a raise, $50,000 raise. Okay, that's one homeless kid that got a raise of $50,000 because he's a hard worker and because he saved his money to be able to do this. And so this is like a role model.
Yeah.
That will give
the other girl that's a lawyer, the wonderful girl you had at
I got another great lawyer. Exactly, Justine. So I got some great news for you on this one.
She made a great speech at that dinner.
She did.
Yeah.
So Justine was on the streets from 12 to 16. This is horrific. Her mother's boyfriend, who was an alcoholic, her mother's boyfriend used to beat her up, drag her by her hair, and then started taking her clothes off. And she says, I got to get the hell out of here at 12 years old. And so she left at 12, was on the street. She shaved her head, put a big coat on so they wouldn't tell she was a girl, okay? And was in a gang and stayed there for 4 years until she was 16. When I met her, she was suicidal. She tried to kill herself twice.
Jesus.
She wouldn't even look at me. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. This is the first time I've ever seen, and the last time I've ever seen, someone didn't look at me in the eye for 2 months. She would not look at me. She looked on the ground. So this is Justine when our music and art program started helping her, okay? And she learned from our art program how to make jewelry, and she's been making jewelry for 16 years. And you know something? She has now finished her schooling in law school. She's done with her education. All she has to do is study the bar, take one more exam, one more semester to pass the bar, and she's going to be an attorney. Okay?
And this is the other thing. So what are youth being offered when they're on the street? Say, well, okay, we have a program, but we can offer you like survival job, a survival place. And they're like, well, if it's just like survival job, you can give me something where I can get up and go somewhere and just make enough to barely eat. Like, well, yeah, I could do that now on the street. You're offering entire lives. You're saying, no, we're talking survival job. We're talking careers. We're talking, you could go from this to a full education and an actual real life career and the life.
In school, get some real help as if we were your parents. And because he said, what do you want? What do you need? What are you looking to do? What do you want? What do you really want? And I would imagine right away, if you look at a kid and you ask that and they don't have any clue what they want, and they're so wasted at that point and so depressed and so sad, and they've given up hope about what their life can be. And I'm sure, Jeffrey, you've met a lot of them. That's a deeper problem. And then you probably have to wait for them to say something. You can't force stuff on them. But the kids who are savable quicker are the ones who are still breathing, who are still hopeful, who still have optimism about the possibilities of life. And how that happens in some of their situations after what's happened to them, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where that heart comes from and how they don't just give up when someone drags you around by your hair.
Raising their optimism level with a lot of these people, but that's a thing too. Like, and what they want, their dreams, which is amazing. Now, obviously, with the massive issues there, you must have kids also who do have drug problems, who do have mental health problems. So, do you have a battery of other people you refer people to, other agencies you must involve, because they must have health problems? People who haven't seen a doctor in 4 and 5 years.
Right.
I mean,
right.
It must be massive. So, how do you handle all that stuff?
Well, I love your questions. Every one of these is great questions. Firstly, every kid is different. But one of the first things we do when we start working with them in case management is, do you have medical insurance? And so we get a Medi-Cal. That's very important, because if they have let's say they go to the emergency room, they have the Medi-Cal, then that takes care of most of the stuff. If they don't, it could be a $10,000 bill. So We got to get Medi-Cal, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, most of these kids have mental health issues. Okay. They have so much trauma in their life, you know, at their house, but also when they're on the streets. So we offer them a mental health evaluations by psychologists, psychiatrists, if they need to have possible medication. And so because they trust us, it's like, I'm afraid to take medication. And by the relationship they have with our case manager, it's like, you know, this really can help you. And like, you really think so? And so again, they trust us enough to say, okay, at least I'll try it. That's all we want is them to try it. And then a lot of times they notice they're a lot better when they're on it. Okay. If they're, let's say, antidepressants, they feel a lot different when they're on it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is what you brought up before. Some of these kids aren't ready to go to college, but they might want to have, you know, like a trade, learn a trade, so they can make money with learning a trade. So one of our partners is the California Conservation Corps, the CCC we call it, which will actually take these kids up in Northern California. They have 8 different areas that they can go in, and they can learn how to do culinary arts, how to do salmon restoration with the fish, how to do carpentry, how to do forestry, you know, all this stuff. And not only do they teach them, they pay them minimum wage while they're learning. Okay.
Yeah.
So these kids are getting money, and they can say, we had one of our kids that was in the fires, you know, when the fires were bad a couple of years ago, he saved $9,000 for extra work that he did, the overtime, you know? And so that will help a kid get started in their life.
But that's what people say when they're what do you want? Well, I want a job. Well, I want medical care. Here you go. I was wondering, this is totally crazy. What do you do with dental care? Do you have a referral to that? Because I'm just thinking, when I was a teenager, oh my God, my teeth. That's when I had the cavities. That's when I had the braces. That's when your wisdom teeth come in. Dental care for people in their late teens, early 20s is an absolute train wreck nightmare. Do you have a referral for dental care?
We do have some dentists. Now, there's not a lot of them, but we have a couple dentists that are willing to, you know, to pro bono help these kids. We need to find more. And you're right, that's a big problem. And so we're always looking, but we have found them, and they have worked on the kids, you know. So we have about 70 partnerships right now with people in our community that do mental health, that do domestic violence, do drug addiction, all these different areas that we need, so we can refer them to them quickly. And since they know us, and they get to know us because we, you know, when we say we're going to do something, we follow through with our word. And so, you know, these organizations say, wow, you know, they get back to us quickly and all this stuff. So they start referring to us when they have a transitional age youth kid, go to Doors to Change. They can help you. So we're getting so many referrals from
you're getting them coming and going. You're sending them to people, and then the dentist and the doctor's calling you, going, you know, I just saw this kid.
Yes.
I think maybe, Jeffrey, too, if there's anybody listening to this who has a service that might be interested in offering it to Doors of Change, that they should contact you as well. Not just people who are there for donating money, but donating their services. Like, yeah, I'm a psychologist, or I'm a dentist, or, you know, I can fix their car, or any number of other things that kids
you're out there. You're
gynecologists. What about the girls who have to see and get, you know, gynecologist, and things like
dentist? You're a mechanic. I've always said that's the thing in life, to have a good gynecologist and a good mechanic.
That's pretty much all you need.
It's really nice. And so anyone who's doing these services can provide that. I mean, that's back in the days of the AIDS hotline. That's what we did, finding the dentist, finding the people who would help and get on the list. So all these people need to come forward, absolutely call you. Also, if someone is listening to this now and you're young and you are on the street and you're somehow just happen to be hearing this show or seeing us, or you have a friend that you talk to who, you know, is living on the street or living in their car. You can call them and tell them about Jeffrey. So now we have to, where do we get hold of you, Jeffrey, if we want to donate money, donate services, or we got a friend who's on the street and we want to like help them come in?
And give them an idea of the parameters that you work in, the areas that you service.
Well, you know, it's interesting. We actually have helped kids in 13 different states.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Because you're always in San Diego, and I always go, can you help LA? But
right. No, that's good to know.
Because kids call us from the different areas. They hear about us. Number one, they go on Facebook and they see our page on Facebook for homeless kids, and they say, well, or they have you know, someone that a friend of theirs went to us and got help from us, and now they're in Colorado. They're in New York City. So we've helped 13 different states this past year, which they will call up our our
1-800 number, the helpline.
Nicole, our case manager. So they'll call the case manager, and I'm going to give a phone number right now. They can call. Number one, if anybody's interested in helping us, go to doorsofchange.org. Doorsofchange.org. Now, youth can do that. You know, someone that sees us and they're a mechanic and say, you know, something, I'll help, you know, maybe once a year I'll donate, you know, a service for free, whatever. A mechanic, dentist, anybody like that. We need social media help. Anybody like that wants to help us, go to doorsofchange.org. Now I'm going to give a number out from Nicole, who is our case manager. Any kid that wants to call her at 760-415-0009. Again, that's 760-415-0009. You can call it anytime. It's nice to call, you know, regular hours, but if something is an emergency, you need to call a different time, you call. If you have a problem, you call.
I think they should just call them in the middle of the night for fun. Just to see how they answer the phone. Even if they could wait till the morning. I just want to call like at 3 a.m.
Nicole,
are you up?
Nicole? And test it. Well, and then that's my question, the dedication here. I mean, obviously, having known people who kept phones going 24 hours in places, where are you finding these people who are saying, yes, I can keep my phone on. I can have a 24-hour phone.
Let me share with you. Our program director, Joanne Newgard, went from Wall Street for 33 years, successful Wall Street. She started volunteering with us. Said, you know something? I would rather do this than do Wall Street. And she quit that, came on board with us. She just won Woman of the Year award by the San Diego Magazine. That's huge.
Oh my God.
50 people were in her category. There's no way she's going to win. She won. Okay. And thank God they recognized us and recognized her. And she is amazing. She, under her direction, she's helped 700 youth get housing under her direction.
Fantastic, Jeffrey.
So that's how we get these people. She sets the precedent because she's so high that people that we hire say, listen, I've got to be at this level. I see you're a giver. I've got to be a giver if I'm going to have this job. And so that's how I've never told them to do this. They do it on their own.
I think people follow their bliss every once in a while. They find out what makes their heart pound and what makes them feel good. And they just go, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go do that because it makes me feel happy. I like doing that. And it turns out like this. I mean, how great that there should be more people doing that when they can.
Well, you're attracting the right kind of people. And then, and then Lucie, the celebrity thing. Now, this is the thing I know I've faced because, you know, I do a lot of stuff. I've done stuff between AIDS Project Los Angeles and Tuesday's Child and Protect.org. And it's always like, why? And I remember I actually wrote an article, Designers West magazine, and I called it Off the Celebrity Bandwagon, because people would say, oh, just in the celebrity bandwagon. But Sherry's like, no, actually, I'm here because I really want to do this. And that's the thing when you're a celebrity. People say, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And I've always said, why isn't everyone?
Why not? Yeah.
You have a position. My position has always been like,
yeah, if you have a voice,
they know who you are. You can go talk.
I was honored that Jeffrey wanted me to do this. I was honored that he thought that my voice would make a difference, that somebody would care, and that Alison Ingram wanted to say to me, oh, let's have them on because I want to talk to them. I'm honored that helps Doors of Change. That's fantastic. And I'm just grateful that I can do that. That's my way of giving back. I've been lucky in my life, in my career, in my family, in the family I grew up in the family I have, you know, with all of its foibles, I've been very lucky. And I'm grateful that I haven't had to really, like from Funny Girl, you know, I'm suffered enough, you know, but it's really like, I haven't suffered like that, thank God. And if I can help somebody who is going through that, even by the simplest things of what I'm doing right now, which I don't think is much at all, I'd like to do, you know, I'd like to be the one who gets called at 3 a.m. I wouldn't know what the hell to say to them, but they can call me. I'll leave my number. Let me leave my number.
And that's the thing, that it is a huge thing because it's drawing the attention to the cause. It's amazing. As you said, you call up the news and you say, we have a very serious story here. We have this marvelous organization and they're doing great work with a huge major societal problem, a problem that you report about on your news show every day. And we have a guy in there like,
Yeah, we don't
Well,
know. Maybe we'll put it on. Maybe we'll see, depending on what happens that day.
well, good on. Or they'll say, well, we can give you 1.5 minutes. And I go, really? And they go, that's actually a long time in television, which it is. And it's completely
Yeah.
crazy. But if you say, well, we have celebrity, they're like, oh, they can have a half an hour. Well, isn't that interesting? And so that's why we do this,
But
because
you
they'll
know
let us
what,
come on
Allison?
the air.
I have to blow a little smoke up your way, because a lot of people say, "Yo, yeah, oh, sure, we'd love to talk to Jeffrey about Doors of Change and Lucie Arnez." And then I get on, and right, Jeffrey, you've been there, and they mention Doors of Change, and then they slide right into what's it like to be the daughter of so and so and so and so, and all. What was the last time you were on Broadway, and yada yada yada. And I'm always having to bring it back around, right, Jeffrey? Like, and whatever they say, I go, oh, my mom and my dad, yeah, they always told me that, support the homeless problem. I go like, and like screech it right back around in a circle. But you're not doing that. You actually care about this. I think that's so fantastic. I'm so happy.
You do the on message thing. When I started doing something, it's like, oh, you're very on mess, because it would be like, blah, 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 Little House on the Prairie. Yes. And, we all took care of each other on the prairie, much like this.
Exactly.
Desperately bring everything back to the thing that you say.
I used to have a thing. I was touring in a show, and I was very young. And no matter where I went, they told me, you got to promote the show. And of course, only people wanted to talk about my mother. And so I learned a trick, which was great. They would ask me whatever they wanted to ask me about my mom. And I said, oh my God, I'm so glad that you asked me that. I have a great story about that. When we were opening in Seesaw, when we opening night at the Bushnell Theater, when we were here, and we were only going to be there 2 weeks, by the way. And, I would just go off and tell this whole story about the show I was in, and they'd still be going, like, waiting for the answer to their question, which I would never get to. Because I would just keep telling the story about Seesaw and Tommy Tune and John Gavin, and how we were there in only 2 weeks, and we got these great reviews. But I started with, oh my God, I got to tell you this amazing story, which you're going to love because you just asked me that question. But it has nothing. I never say anything about the question. I did that for years.
I'm stealing that.
You could, yes.
My mother would love this show that I'm in right now, that is playing at 8 and 10 o'clock.
Speaking of homeless people, I was doing my show at the Purple Room on February 3rd and 4th. There's still a few tickets left if people want to call. And there were some homeless people out front, and just promote whatever you're promoting, but we're not doing
it's murder, and it's true. And the people that were the celebrities said it's absolutely crazy. This is but we are in a position where it's like, well, people watch us on the TV and they come to our shows and they're paying attention to us for whatever crazy reasons, good or bad. So it's like, well, what if we had something to tell them? Like,
right?
Go
imagine that,
Jeffrey.
Imagine we were involved in something that mattered. Yeah.
And here is someone who's actually physically getting people off the street.
Right.
I just wanted to say that I am just so appreciative, more than you even imagine, Lucie, because you're taking your time. The biggest thing I've learned in 21 years is that people don't have any clue the severity of this homeless youth issue. And by raising awareness, people say, oh my God, I didn't know. And then it's like, there's a door open, like, maybe I can help.
Yeah.
You're helping us get to that point. You're raising awareness. And that's the first thing we have to do. Once we raise awareness, then the angels come.
That's
okay.
Right.
It's raising awareness, number one. And so I never know where they're going to come from, but I know, please God, give me at least one out of this interview. An angel will come, but I'm just so appreciative of your time, your passion, your big heart, because it's real. And you too, Alison, you're real about what you're touched by the homeless youth issue also. There's 3.5 million youth that are homeless in America today.
How about that?
Million.
Now, I'm in LA, and I just said, you're in San Diego, but if someone in LA wants to come help, if someone has a friend on the street in LA, we can still call you. You have people who can come to LA and help.
No, what we'll do is we'll tell them where to go in their area to get the service that they need. Let's just say they said, I need a place to park my car that's safe. So we'll research where that is in Los Angeles, and we'll tell them exactly where to go, or, I have a drug addiction. Where can I go? Then we'll, again, research where in LA they should go to. So we're not actually physically going to other communities, but we're
networking.
You're acting as almost a national hotline because you're researching other cities.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're in LA and you need help, and you've called the numbers in LA, but they didn't have a 24-hour guy on the phone, or they didn't call you back, you can call you guys in San Diego. They'll go, hang on a minute, let me go look it up.
Yeah. Listen, if they're homeless, we want to help them. That's it. It
I
doesn't
have
matter
a
where the hell they
question.
are.
I have a question I've never asked Jeffrey. If I see somebody, and I've seen them several times, let's say, and I kind of know they're on the street, what would you suggest if I felt like approaching them? What is the best thing to, if you
Excellent.
feel like you'd like to help, but you don't want to embarrass them, you don't want to,
Sure.
what should I say?
What I would do is I would approach them with a bottle of water, and maybe an apple. I have apples in my car and water in my car. So that's a way they can be helped, because you don't know the mental situation of this person. You can't trust anybody. So you can just, if you give them something like that, it's a really good thing. They're going to take it. And that's what you can do, because, you're not trained. And even I would be, it depends on where it is. We only work with 17 to 25-year-olds. I'm not going to approach a 38-year-old or a 40 or 50-year-old.
Yeah, right.
And
I'm talking about kids, generally youth, and you just want to, I don't want to say like, are you homeless? Or I don't even know if that's tacky and awful and inappropriate or what, but I think a lot of people might feel that way. Like, gosh, I feel uncomfortable seeing this. I'd like to help, but I have no clue what the appropriate thing would be to do.
And everybody needs water. I mean, usually,
water in an apple, assuming we haven't poisoned the apples. Yeah. Remember when you couldn't give away fresh fruit at Halloween because there were razor blades in them and stuff. So it's hard to get. But yes, something fresh to eat, apples, bananas, something, and fresh bottled water would be great. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's something.
And sometimes that does start a conversation. A lot of people, like I said, I've done work people who fed the homeless, either distributed food or set up meals or in the park. And sometimes that was a conversation, because then someone got fed. Then they said, okay, well, now that I'm not ready to pass out from starvation, hey, do you know where I can get? Fill in the blank.
We don't have enough time for this whole story, but just in a very short way, I met a fella. He wasn't a youth. He must have been in his 50s, but he was standing outside of our local Ralph's down here in Palm Springs, and it was very hot, and he was pouring new water bottles. Like, he'd spend the little money he had, go into a gas station and buy bottled water and pour it over his head so that he could get washed, showered, and cooled, right? Wow. And then I saw him in the market, and he's just wearing a wife beater shirt and very skinny, and he limped. And I don't know what possessed me, but I went up and I said, do you need anything? Can I help you? And he was, oh, no, I'm I said, are you homeless? And no, I said, are you in a shelter? And he said, no, I'm afraid of shelters. They scare me. And I have a bush that I stay in. It's in North Palm Springs up on Vista Chino. And long story short, I kept talking to this guy. I bought him a sandwich. I got him water, and it was really hot outside. And I said, do you need a shower, like in a place to stay just for a night? And I happened to have an empty apartment that I had just purchased, and it was clean, but it had no furniture in it, but it had air conditioning, and it had a shower, and I could bring towels. And I got this guy to come out and stay in this place overnight. And the reason I'm telling you this is, on the way there, he told me his life story and what had happened. And none of it was his fault. None of it was anything he did wrong. His wife and 2 daughters were killed in a terrible car accident, and he couldn't get over it. And he started drinking, and then he lost his job and everything because he couldn't stop drinking. Finally, he pulled himself out of that, and he got a job working for a water company, and somebody jumped into the truck and shot him in the head and in the back to steal money from the truck. The company that he worked for wouldn't pay for him to get the medical leave, so the state paid because it was a crime. And when he finally got out of the hospital, and a year and a half later, the company wouldn't give him his job back. He had no family, and he just gave up. He went, I can't deal with this anymore. And he's living in a bush. The nice guy.
Again, it's trauma.
Horrible trauma that had nothing to do with him. And he spent one priceless night in my little condominium over there. The place was absolutely spotless when he left. I bought him a toothbrush and food and shower, and he took the shower and and slept on the floor with a pillows and everything, and then folded them all up. I said, you can stay here all week. No, I'm not doing anything if you want to. He left the next day, left me, God bless you, thank you so much, note on the front door. I said, well, I'll leave the key right under the thing here. He left the key, right, he left. So I thought, okay, how many people like Peter, that was his name, Peter, how many people like Peter are out there right now? And a lot of times you can look at homeless kids, homeless people, and say, like, drunks, whatever. You never know. You just never know what someone is going through. And I think we all need to think about it a little more, because could be me, could be you never know what's going to happen in your life.
It's either trauma at the home, at childhood, either childhood trauma of abuse or abandonment of some kind, or then trauma that impacted them at some point in their life, and at some point
crazy life stuff happens.
Severe trauma, it's very hard to get back on the rails. And there's a lot of people, either early trauma or later trauma, and this is why it's at the level of fear that you're having, Jeffrey, and everybody's having to overcome to get people to even talk to them to get help. And yet you're doing it. That's the amazing thing, because the fact is that you got the 24-hour thing going, you got people who talk to them. I hope that obviously this show, we are wrapping up this show. It stays on the UBN Go site. It stays on the Facebook of the Alison Arngrim page. It rolls over and becomes an audio podcast on Stitcher and all the little programs that do that. So a lot of people do wind up hearing this, and they reshare it and send it to other people.
Right.
And you may get a call. You could get a call,
Right.
and someone say, well, who are these people? What is going on? People may tune in and go, oh, Lucie Arnez was on. Perhaps she'll tell us about Pippin. They will tune in, they will hear about it, and you may get calls. Sure. And I really hope you do. And by the way, Lucie, you look absolutely fabulous.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yes.
That's nice to hear.
I just said yes, and I am dying to know, how are you in such great shape? You look fabulous.
You can only see me from the neck down. How do you know? I mean, who knows what shape I'm in, right?
You look at those cheekbones. You look good. You look amazing. You do have a show. Are you doing a show?
I am. I'm starting back. I say starting back because I got out after the COVID thing and did my new show again several times. And then I ended up needing a knee surgery. So I just had a knee replacement and I've been recouping from that, but I'm getting there. So I go back on stage at the end of January, and I'm doing a show at the Purple Room in Palm Springs, February 3rd and 4th. And then I'm in Florida in March. And then I'm all booked all over the place again. So
awesome.
I'm back on the boards. We're getting back.
What's your website?
LucieArnez. Oh, sorry. You're talking to me?
Lucie's website and then your website.
LucieArnez.com.
Easy to find. Doors have changed?
Doorsofchange.org. But one thing I was going to say, if someone's touched by this and they want to help, we have a thing called the Angel Team. We've trademarked Angel Team from the California Angels. They gave us permission. And so it's trademarked for $11 a month, which is $132 a year, which is not a lot. Starting at $11 or more if they can afford it. Go to our website and get on the monthly, thing. So $11, $18, $50, whatever you can do. I'll tell you, if 500 to 1,000 people do this, we're going to have a lot more money. We can help a lot more kids.
That's wonderful. That's terrific. Angels. Okay. Go on the website.
You're both amazing. Thank you so much for coming on my show. I'll probably wind up having you both again at some point.
I'd love it, Alison.
Both of you for everything you're doing. Thank you so much. And this is the Alison Arngrim Show, and I'm Alison Arngrim.
I found my way home across the Grand Mirage.